This is Popular Front, a podcast focused on the niche details of modern warfare and underreported conflict with me, Jake Hanrahan. Today we're speaking to Kurdish writer and researcher Abdulla Hawez. He's going to be talking to us about the recent joint military incursion into Kurdistan. It's a joint operation between the Kurdish KDP party of Iraqi Kurdistan and the Turkish military. Basically, it's a joint operation into the areas where the Kurdish militants, the PKK, are inside Iraqi Kurdistan, which of course the KDP mainly controls. It's a very messy situation. Abdullah's going to tell us all about it. If you like what we're doing, please support us at patreon.com/popularfront. So last week, we saw Turkey launch this operation, this incursion into Kurdistan, Iraqi Kurdistan, whatever people want to call it. And then it turns out it's kind of essentially a collaboration with Barzani's KDP party, also Kurds, fighting the PKK, who are Kurds. It all looks quite messy. Can you just kind of explain to us what is going on right now?
So Turkey, as you said, has started a new military operation in Iraqi Kurdistan. And in many ways, this is the continuation of last year's operations in the Amedi district in northern Iraqi Kurdistan. So basically what's going on is, so PKK has been operating in these areas pretty much since 80s. So Turkey has been trying in the last few years, they have changed the strategy. They have trying to push the war more and more into Iraqi Kurdistan so that they will basically fight PKK in Kurdistan instead of inside Turkey. So basically, this operation is focused on a few very mountainous, very harsh, very rigid areas. So it's as you said, it's very messy, it's harsh, and in some ways, the KDP, the Barzani's party, is at least indirectly cooperating with Turkey in fighting PKK.
Right, and what's their goal here? I mean, for 40 years, they've been, Turkey has said, right, this is the end of the PKK, it's the final mission, blah blah. Obviously, that's not the case. What do you think this goal is? Surely they don't think that actually, this is the final operation.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, some people view the PKK issue as terrorism issue, and they think, PKK is just a terrorist organization. We have to eliminate it. But as you said, this is obviously not the case. PKK is a Kurdish movement in Turkey, and the thing is, Kurds in Turkey have been fighting. There has been at least over 24 revolutions in Turkey since the foundation of the Turkish establishment of the Turkish Republic in 1923. So in many ways, it's the continuation of this struggle. There has been interruptions. For example, in the 50s, 60s, there were no fighting, but in many ways, so PKK is representing the Kurdish movement in Turkey. So the idea that they can eliminate Turkey through military means is basically not possible. And in my opinion, it has become even more difficult. I mean, obviously, the Turks, especially people close to Erdogan, has been talking about Turkish military weapons development, drones and things like that. But I don't think this is going to be enough. Because the thing is, while Turkish military has been going through some sort of modernization or advancing their own indigenous weapons, PKK has also been, becoming much more powerful. And we have to remember, PKK is not only a military organization. It's actually it has become a multifaceted, multi-organizational movement that has local, regional, national, and even global presence. So really thinking that you can defeat PKK militarily is just not possible.
For those that don't quite understand what's going on here, maybe explain why the KDP, a Kurdish party, has aligned with the Turkish government, a government, even, Erdogan's government is particularly brutal against Kurds. They say, oh, it's just terrorism. It's absolutely not. We know there are so many politicians and journalists, Kurdish journalists in prison. You can get sent to prison for simply, waving a Kurdish flag in certain areas. Why is it then that the Kurdish party that runs the majority of Iraqi Kurdistan is collaborating with Turkey to fight the PKK?
That's a good question. The thing is, first of all, Kurds are divided into 4 countries. So what has been happening is it's always one of the countries of the other country is using the minority Kurds in one of the other countries against one of the other Kurdish groups. Okay, so this has been happening for quite some time. But this issue is, I would say, KDP has taken it to quite a new level in terms of this cooperation with a country that has a very not a really good reputation when it comes to Kurdish rights. The thing is, KDP has been cooperating with Turkey since the 90s. Okay, so for example, in 1992, which the first Turkish invasion into Iraqi Kurdistan happened, that was just after the Iraqi Kurdistan was established. No-fly zone was imposed by the US, UK, and the Allied forces. So after that, KDP actually joined the Turkish military in attacking PKK. At the time, they were actively part of it. According to most statistics, at least 3,000 KDP Peshmerga died in fighting PKK alongside the Turkish military. So this has been going on since the 90s. But I would say it has changed dramatically in the last 3 years, because KRG or KDP has established very strong economic ties with Turkey, especially with the ruling AKP and Erdogan's family. So because of this new found let's say fortune that KDP, now they are exporting oil, like the KRG oil through Turkey, and obviously this is not for free. So there has been an oil agreement between KRG and Turkey. It's a secret agreement. Nobody knows the details, but according to most people who are, let's say, who have been following this closely, this is not only about oil. There are actually it's directly related to KDP's cooperation with Turkey in combating PKK.
Yeah.
So it's really so there's this interconnected military political alliance between KDP and Erdogan. So basically, you could say they are benefiting economically from this war. So this is why they are fighting alongside Turkey against PKK. I mean, obviously there's more to it, I have to say. So KDP is ideologically a tribal. They call themselves nationalist, a little conservative party. In many ways, it's similar to the Kurdish village guards in Turkey. They are tribal, conservative people who are fighting alongside Turkey against PKK. And we have to remember, when PKK was found, it had publicly announced it has 2 enemies. One enemy was obviously the Turkish state that are oppressing Kurds. The other were the tribal landlords of feudal Kurdish tribal chiefs that were basically co-opted by the Turkish state. Mm-hmm. So it's in you could say in many ways this is a similar situation. These people, for them, cooperation with Turkey has a long history. It's nothing new. It's not a new thing. But what's new for me and what I find interesting is KDP has been avoiding to directly engage in the fight, unlike before, because they do have a record in fighting actively alongside the Turkish forces, the KDP Peshmerga, I mean. But nowadays, because of the situation in Iraq, not only in Kurdistan, it's very difficult for them to actively fight alongside Turkey, because basically that would be indefensible. And the way they're operating now, they have found a way to have a sort of plausible deniability to say they are, they're not directly involved in the fight, although they are. I mean,
of course.
so this new arrangement, in a way, I think it has been good for both Turkey and KDP. But I would say the people who are, especially the pro-KDP people who are denying being part of this fight, is really laughable to me, honestly, because anyone who goes to these areas, you can easily see, I have had dozens of sources, people, by the way, not only from PKK, but also people inside the KDP Peshmerga who tell me there's a clear cooperation with the Turkish military. So it's not, there's no, you cannot deny that. Yes.
There's even footage of KDP military vehicles going to assist Turkish forces, right?
So what they are saying, they have been saying, yes, there are KDP reinforcements to these areas, but it's just to protect the civilians. It's just, and they are saying that what we are trying to do is to prevent PKK to pushing further into the Kurdish territory. But what's happening is not really this. So what Turkey has been doing now, most of the operations, most of the logistics are happening inside Iraqi Kurdistan, by the way, because Turkey has several big military bases. And these military bases were established that was an agreement with KDP in 1997 after the Kurdish civil war. So these military movements are happening in these bases. And the thing is, these bases are protected by KDP Peshmerga. There's an agreement, they have to protect it, by the way. So what they have been doing is they are protecting the Turkish, the route of the Turkish, let's say, military conveys from these bases to the areas where the fighting is happening. So in as you said, they are protecting the Turkish conveys or the Turkish military routes from the bases to the mountains where these fightings are happening right now. To also mention, there are intelligence cooperation, by the way, as well. So many of these airstrikes, drone strikes, some of them are, I have to admit, are quite precise. It's not happening without prior intelligence information. There is no way you cannot, because the thing is, obviously, drones are only useful if you have enough intelligence information. You cannot just randomly, attack areas. So there are solid cooperation in the arena of intelligence as well.
Right, and I think as well, if there wasn't some kind of agreement, Kurdistan would do something to fight back. They can't just go, oh yeah, come in here, you know what I mean? If they were genuinely against this, then surely they would have to fight back, because otherwise it would be an invasion.
The thing is, as you said, first of all, Turkish military bases has expanded. Now they have military bases as south as Bashik. Bashik is some area close to, they call it Bashika in Arabic. It's close to Mosul. So basically, it's very far away from the front lines of where PKK are. And this area is obviously under the control of KDP. So this whole military expansion, it's very obvious, unless you turn a blind eye, that it's very obvious that there's clear cooperation between KDP and Turkey. And by the way, the agreement, there has been sort of agreement before between the Iraqi government and Turkey for limited incursions into Iraq. But these incursions the condition was that it cannot be more than 10 kilometers into the Iraqi territory. This is not the case anymore because obviously both KDP, but I have to say also the Iraqi government are allowing Turkey to do it. I don't know what's the return. Obviously, it may be in return of something. Some people claim it's in return of more water because Iraq is suffering from drought. There are other people who claim it's for more military cooperation because there has been reports that Iraq is trying to buy drones from Turkey and other weapons. So we don't know what exactly is the reason, but it's clear that without the cooperation between KDP and I would say also the Iraqi government, there is no way Turkey would have such a free movement in pretty much all northern Iraqi Kurdistan.
Yeah. And what's been the kind of local reaction to this? I know that whilst the PKK are not exactly like they're not a strong political force in the KRG, they do have a lot of support, at least from what I've noticed when I've been there several times. What's the general kind of feeling towards this situation?
From across Iraq Kurdistan, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, overall, obviously, most people have sympathy for PKK. I mean, I would say minus the hardcore KDP supporters. But overall, yeah, people obviously are seeing this as a fight between Turkey against Kurds. This is the general feeling of people. They don't believe this argument that this is just an operation against PKK. Most of the reactions, for example, that I've seen on Facebook, which is basically the main platform where Iraqi Kurds use, it's pretty much overwhelmingly, I would say, in support of or at least sympathy with the PKK.
Right. And what would be, other than like being politically undermined, what would the KDP's kind of reasons be for allowing all of this to happen, other than the deal as well? Like, is the PKK attacking the KDP? Like, are they what kind of trouble is it that they've apparently caused for the KDP inside KRG?
So the thing is, KDP, PKK, and PKK, they're both pan-Kurdish movements across the Middle East, and I would say for KDP, the main and basically the only serious rival is PKK, both ideologically and in terms of their capabilities in projecting power across the region. I mean, you have a strong PKK-backed Kurdish movement in Iran. You have it obviously in Syria. And while in Iraqi Kurdistan, they don't have a strong base. They have a strong base in Sinjar. They have, I would say, good cooperation with PUK and other forces. So the reason I would say, as you said, it's obviously not only economic. It's really also about a competition between two major pan-Kurdish rivals, and obviously their ideology is starkly different. They're basically the opposite.
Yeah.
PKK is a secular, progressive party who has been very clear that they're very much against feudalism and tribalism in the Kurdish areas, because they think this is one of the reasons for, let's say, the Kurdish statelessness and in some ways the backwardness of the Kurdish society in these areas that has prevented the establishment of a strong intellectual base that can lay the ground for a Kurdish state, or at least a Kurdish autonomy. Mm-hmm. So KDP is the opposite of that. They are obviously it's clear that KDP equals Barzanis. Barzanis are a family, but also a tribe. The way they operate is very much alliances with tribes, with feudal warlords. They are conservative, even the way they operate. It's very obvious. So it's basically ideologically they're pretty much in the opposite schools of in terms of ideology. So it's more than economy. For KDP, PKK is basically the biggest danger internally within the Kurdish, let's say, rivalries. So for them, if PKK is defeated, they would pretty much become the only, let's say, strong or the only movement that doesn't have any competition any longer. But obviously, this is not going to happen because, as I said, PKK is not only a militia with a few thousand fighters, in Iraq, Kurdistan. It's more than that. We have seen they have been capable. Actually, in many ways, they are far more capable than KDP in terms of building NGOs, civil society movements, media. I mean, political parties. Even in economically, they have been smart in trying to build, trying to have investments to continue their struggle. So in many ways, PKK, in my opinion, has become so strong, not militarily necessarily, but so strong, let's say politically, in the way they have been building all these local, national, regional, and global institutions. It's really the only way that you can tackle this issue of PKK is obviously inside Turkey, and it should be a political solution. And coming back to the KDP, I don't think they can achieve the goals that they can achieve through cooperation with Turkey. It's just not possible, because this issue is not only a military issue. It's a political issue. And basically, the thing is, because the Kurdish issue is so interconnected across the region, in Iraq, especially in Iraq, Syria, and Turkey, really, it's the only way to solve it is through a political solution inside Turkey. Again, the issue is inside Turkey, in my opinion, because the thing is, even if you have all these cross-border operations in Iraq and Syria, again, you have to look at back into Turkey to solve this issue, because PKK, obviously, when we say PKK, it's a larger umbrella that many political movements, many other movements come into this umbrella. Of course, I don't want to say they're PKK, because Turkey would use it as evidence that, let's say, HDP is PKK. They're not, but they come from the same root.
Right. There's a lot of association with like KCK and stuff like that, right?
They have a similar political discourse, because they are basically, they're all let's say what you call Kurdish movement, but they are organizationally, and even in terms of actual association, there are many differences, but you have to go into detail to see them. But overall, what I'm trying to say is these people have association, and these groups, for example, you have PYD in Syria, you have HDP, you have PKK themselves, you have many other groups in Iraq, you have PKK in Iran. These people, this umbrella, this ideology that embraces, let's say, Öcalan's ideology of democratic confederalism, they have become too strong, because obviously for Turkey, if you believe in this ideology, automatically you are PKK, even if you don't actively fight, as a fighter. This is not how they perceive PKK. For them, if you believe, for example, Öcalan has an ideology and this ideology is viable as a solution, they believe you are PKK, which is not, by the way. This is not how things are. But this is how they see it. What I'm trying to say is these groups have become so, the expansion of this ideology has become so big that it's really the only way you can solve it is through some sort of political settlement. And this political settlement basically is through some sort of power sharing. By power sharing, I don't mean Erdogan and PKK should have, a joint government. This is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there should be structural change within Turkey where Kurds are seen as equal to Turks. I mean, what you have now is really not the case. You can see even not this. This is not only about political repression. If you go to the Kurdish areas, they are the least developed. Okay, these areas, in terms of GDP per capita, for example, they are 50 to 70% less rich than the other areas of Turkey. I mean, if you look at maps, in terms of everything, you can clearly see this area is different from the rest of Turkey. Why? Why? I mean, what I'm trying to say, this is not only the military or even a political issue. It's a multifaceted issue, and I think if you want to solve this issue, you have to look at all these different things. It's not only let's say the solution is not only through, let's say, some very menial or basic reforms. For example, through opening Kurdish TV. I mean, this is a big issue. The supporters of Erdogan believe you should be thankful that they have opened, let's say, a Kurdish TV. Why should Kurds be thankful? It's their right to speak in their language. I mean, it's honestly, the issue is they believe even this very small reforms, they think you should be thankful. But the issue is the structural issues in Turkey are still there. I mean, these issues that sees Kurds are as second-class citizens, not even second-class citizens, to be honest. They are excluded from the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You cannot solve this issue without solving this whole structural issues. Obviously, there are big problems because politically it's very difficult to do them, because in the Turks in general, the voting base basically of all these non-Kurdish parties in Turkey most of them are against it, unfortunately. But you have to find a way to lay the ground for it. I mean, as I said, it's a multifaceted issue. You have to work in parallel in all these issues to solve it. It takes time, but if they are serious about solving this issue, the way is not to send drones or aircrafts to Iraqi Kurdistan. The way is to do something inside Turkey.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I mean, I saw it in my own eyes. Anyone that goes down to Southeast Turkey, it's like a different country completely. Even in terms of like structure, the way things are built, I think you're something like 4 more times unlikely to even have employment down there. Like, yeah, there's a lot of issues to it. In terms of this operation, there's not been that much footage coming out. We know there's been a few PKK guerrillas have been killed. I think there's been a major in the Turkish military has been killed. What does it actually look like? Where is this taking place? I know there's ground troops, and I've seen some footage of Turkish helicopter gunships and PKK firing at them. What kind of actual operation is this?
This is happening in some area. It's overall called ZAP region. It's central northern Iraqi Kurdistan. It's a mountainous area. So what Turkey has done is they have sent airborne commandos and special forces, and they have airdropped some of them in these areas, and the rest have been coming through land. So they have an air base in around Bamarne. It's also an area in central northern Iraqi Kurdistan. These areas are around perhaps from 15 to 25 to 30 kilometers from the Turkish border. So these operations have been happening in the mountainous areas. These areas are very, very rigid, very harsh terrain. So perhaps this is partially why it's also difficult to film, because it's a very rigid area. But so far, what we have is there has been some clashes. There has been deaths from both sides. By the way, I think they are both obviously inflate the enemy's killings and minimize theirs. This should be obvious to everyone. But there has been deaths, over a dozen, both PKK guerrillas and Turkish soldiers have been killed. But aside from that, the thing is, because the PKK has changed its tactics, there are no longer large-scale fightings. PKK now, they have small mobile guerrillas, fighters, and they are mobile, let's say, teams. They are not fixed in one area, because the issue is, after the increasing drone strikes, they have been trying to avoid to stick to one area. They have been moving around. But I would say one important indicator whether this operation for Turkey is going well or not is whether they will be able to find the PKK tunnels, the PKK hideouts, because these areas, as I said, PKK, aside from the mobile teams, they do have tunnels where they try to hide from the airstrikes and the drones. And PKK has been entrenching in these areas for a very long time. Especially that region used to be the HQ of PKK's command. So they have been entrenching at least since the 90s. I would say it's not easy for Turkey. It's actually very, very difficult to eradicate PKK in these areas. But I think the goal of Turkey right now, the goal has been, at least since 2020, is that they are building permanent outposts throughout all these regions. And the goal is to minimize the infiltration of PKK inside Turkey. So these operations will take a very long time, in my opinion, years at least, because the thing is, the winter in these areas is extremely harsh. You would have maybe 2-3 meters of snow, which means the operations will stop. They cannot, continue. In these times, given that PKK has their own hideouts and tunnels, they can in a way, reorganize, have fresh breath to sort of reorganize. So in a way, it's not easy to eradicate PKK in these areas. The area is, if you look at footage of the mountain, it's very, very rigid. We have to remember these areas have never been fully controlled by anyone for centuries, not decades. Iraqi government never fully controlled these areas, by the way. Before that, the Ottomans never fully controlled it. The area is extremely rigid. It's really not easy to control it.
And you mentioned Iraq there. What's Iraq's role in all of this? What are they saying? I did hear that some Iraqi forces tried to take over YBS positions in Sinjar, because obviously, YBS and PKK have quite a strong relationship. What's Iraq? Have they said anything? What are they doing?
So officially, Iraq has been against this operation. We have seen at least a couple statements publicly condemning the operations. The Iraqi foreign minister claimed that they only have an agreement for Turkey to come 5 kilometers into Iraq. But in practice, this is not what's happening. The day the Turkish operation started in Iraqi Kurdistan, we saw a similar, I would call similarly, operation in Sinjar by Iraqi army against Yabeshe or YBS, which is a Yazidi militia, which has close relations with PKK. So this indicates, in my opinion, that there is some sort of approval from the Iraqi side for this operation. And the thing is, in the last few days, Iraqi, for example, electricity minister was visiting Turkey to import electricity from Turkey. I mean, which government in the world, when its land is being violated, or its sovereignty being violated, would be negotiating economic and other arrangements with the country that violates? It's really, I mean, practically, it doesn't make any sense that Iraq claims they're against it. it has no ground, in my opinion, because if you are against something, you'll practically do something, you'll take action. You don't just, have a 5-sentence statement against it. It should be a bit more robust, but this is not what we have seen from Iraq. This is why, in my opinion, there has been an approval from the Iraqi side for this operation. Otherwise, we'll see a bit a stronger, let's say a stronger move from Iraq. They will go, for example, to UN to condemn it. They will take some economically. They'll stop importing stuff from Turkey. I mean, they are not doing any of this. How would, I don't think there's it, at least they haven't convinced me. If you are seriously against this operation, you would at least take some action, but this is not what they have been doing.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. What's the PKK's response been? Obviously, they're on the ground fighting. I saw some kind of statement they're saying, like, we'll fight everywhere. But in terms of action, what's happened?
One thing that I want to clarify. So there has been this statement by Duran Kalkan. He is a PKK leader, where he claimed, they are attacking Turkish everywhere. And I saw a lot of Turkish Twitter accounts claiming he has said they are attacking anything military or civilian. If you look at Duran Kalkan is obviously, he has a lot of controversial statements, but this is actually not what he says. It has been taken out of context. He basically says, we will have a strong response. We'll try to attack Turkish military inside Turkey. This is what they have been doing for a long time, by the way. But these statements are obviously part of the war. It's not necessarily what they are going to do. Obviously, if you're under attack, you're not going to say we are going to surrender. You are going to, you need to have a, let's say, such a response. But they, in no way, I think they have indicated that they are going to attack basically any civilian infrastructure. This hasn't been the case. In terms of PKK's response, they have been doing some fighting in the mountains, and Turkey has admitted, I think, around 7 to 8 soldiers killed, but the number is much higher, according to what I heard from sources on the ground. So there has been a pushback from PKK. They have been trying to fight as much as they can, obviously, because we have to remember the balance of military capabilities is really very, very much in favor of Turkey.
Yeah.
But they have been trying to push back in some of these areas, and actually in a couple areas, Turkey was unable to land troops for at least a couple of days due to very strong resistance from PKK. So there has been resistance or fighting from the side of PKK. But as I said, because they have changed their tactics, now they have only small teams who are, fighting in one particular place. The fighting has been sporadic, and PKK has been allowing some sort of Turkish advance, or let's say they have been unable to fight back in some areas. But one thing is clear: these PKK, or what Turkey calls advances, is really not advances unless they can, let's say, find out the PKK, as I said, hideouts and tunnels, because this is where PKK are. PKK is not in every single spot of the mountains. These mountains are very big and very, very harsh. So it's landing troops in one area doesn't mean you're controlling it or you're advancing, but we have seen, I have to also say, we have seen in some other areas, Turkey has not been doing that bad. In areas further west, in an area called Haftani, it's basically the last, it's the areas close to the border with Syria. Turkey has been fighting there for, let's say, 3 years, but by now they have mostly suppressed the PKK resistance. In last year and the year before, in 2020 until 2021, we have seen a lot of news from the PKK media about attacks against Turkish troops in these areas, but mostly they have died down. So it has taken time, but they have been able to sort of control, minimal control of these areas. And I think in a way they have also reduced the infiltration of PKK inside Turkey. So their goal, I can see that Turkish goal is basically attacking PKK in every area where they exist, including in Gara Mountain, which is probably PKK's strongest base, and Kandil Mountains. So I don't think these operations will stop in these areas, but it takes time, it takes years. So perhaps Turkey may be able to reduce PKK's operations overall. It can inflict damage. There is no doubt, because militarily they're far stronger. But overall, I don't think that will achieve its bigger goal, which is basically what they call solving the terrorism problem. It's not a terrorism problem. There's a Kurdish problem that they have to solve. Even if they militarily can suppress PKK in the years to come. As I said, we have seen Kurdish revolutions since the 20s. It has been continuing until now. So I don't think in the long run, this is going to be effective, because tomorrow, or let's say next year or the year after, there would be change in Turkey, obviously, because Turkey is not only the Kurdish question. There are a lot of issues between the opposition and Erdogan. There are a lot of opposition problems within the Turkish society itself. So there would be a change. When there are these change, if, for example, there are democratization in Turkey, that will the Kurdish voices will resurface, because the only reason you have less, Kurdish voices is because basically all of them are in prison, or they are being killed or arrested. So this is not how you solve this issue. As I said, it's a structural problem. The only way you can solve it is a political solution. So militarily, coming back to the Iraqi Kurdistan, Turkey has been seeing some limited success in some areas, but this success will not translate to political success.
Yeah. I saw this morning the HBDH, that kind of alliance of PKK militants, Turkish leftist militants, and I think even some Assyrians. They said this morning that they've been carrying out attacks inside Turkey. For example, the recent attack on the Turkish prison officer bus. Do you think that's something we'll see a lot more of now that these operations are going on inside the KRG against the PKK? It's like another front, essentially.
Yeah, there has been at least a couple attacks against military or police or security targets. We may see some, we may see few, but I find it difficult to see large-scale attacks. Partially because, obviously, partially because of, I think Turkish intelligence is much stronger now than it used to be. So I don't think we'll see the violence of the 90s. I think it's really, really difficult to see this.
Yeah.
But we may see some smaller scale attacks, such as the one we have seen another one in Bursa against I think it was a base of security forces. But overall, large scale attacks, I find it difficult. And by the way, these attacks are pretty much symbolic. And in a way, it's PKK says we still exist. So it's basically to keep the this symbolic existence. But aside from that, to be honest, I find it difficult to see large-scale attacks, because the thing is, Turkey, what they have been doing is for example, right now, in parallel with the operation in Iraqi Kurdistan, they have at least two other operations started in Shirnak and in Mardin inside Turkey. So what they have been doing is they have been doing multi-front operations, and they are doing operations basically across the year. Even in winters, we have seen operations in places like Diyarbakir and Mardin, in Shirnak and Hakkari, especially these areas that are bordering Iraqi Kurdistan. So it has been, Turkey has been, what they have been trying to do is they have been trying to be on offensive instead of being in defensive. You know, before, at least until a few years ago, Turkey's strategy in a way has been, I would call it more defensive than offensive, but this has changed. Now they're attacking PKK in the areas that are basically their strongholds, which makes it very difficult to maneuver. But aside from that, obviously PKK does have a lot of sympathizers inside Turkey. Some of them are ready to carry these attacks, but I find it difficult to see large-scale attacks. It's just these small-scale attacks.
In terms of the KRG, obviously it's kind of split up power-wise between KDP and then the other political party, PUK. What role does the PUK have in this operation, if any?
So the thing, PUK has been going through a lot of change in the last couple of years. There is a lot of power struggle within the Talabani family, which are controlling PUK. And PUK is controlling the eastern parts of Iraqi Kurdistan, which is basically bordering Iran. So PUK's relation with PKK is much more friendly than KDP's. And these usually PUK's relation with PKK depends on their relation with KDP. Nowadays, their relation with KDP is really very low. I mean, they are basically they're in a media war right now. So that automatically means better relations between PUK and PKK. But we have to remember in the 90s, PUK and PKK also had there was infighting between these two for a couple of years. So the relations have not always been cordial and friendly. Aside from that, I have heard some reports, I'm not sure how accurate are they, that PUK's leader, Bafel Talabani, he has secretly visited Turkey, negotiations about KRG's natural gas, because most of the KRG natural gas is located in the PUK areas. So PUK wants to have a bigger share in these agreements with Turkey. They don't want to be blindsided because the oil agreement between KRG and Turkey was between KDP and Turkey. Now PUK insists that they have to be part of these agreements. So if that happens, obviously that automatically means bad news in the front of relations between PKK and PUK. Another thing is, in the last few days, so Turkey conducted airstrikes in the PUK area. Now reports are coming out. These were actually PKK weapon depots. Obviously, that means, in my opinion, it has to have happened in coordination with PUK. And because the thing is, obviously, you need intelligence information to be able to attack PKK depots, which are in very remote areas, very difficult to spot them, in mountainous areas, by the way. So the relation between PUK and PKK as well, it's going through change. And this change depends on relations between PUK and KDP and PUK and Turkey. Because PUK also, we have to remember, there are also a bunch of people who are into, they are really more concerned about businesses and economy than about ideology, about Kurdish nationalism. It's really not about that for most of these people. So if they can gain from an agreement with Turkey in terms of exporting their natural gas, I wouldn't be surprised if they increase their cooperation with Turkey against PKK. Because we have to remember, these agreements with Turkey, really, there's no way Turkey would do it without some sort of agreement in the front of PKK. There is always this component.
All comes back to that, right? For Turkey.
Yeah, I think it's for Turkey. It's all about this. So there's no way they would accept it without some sort of guarantees from PKK that PUK that they will some sort of cooperate against PKK.
Yeah, man. Is there anything else you want to say, mate? I think we've kind of covered most of it there.
The last thing I would say in terms of so we have talked about that this is Turkey has been seeing this through the lenses of military through combating PKK through military means. I mean, there has been times where AKP, we have seen they desecuritize this issue in the through the Kurdish opening in around 2009 until 2014. Unfortunately, at the time, we have seen AKP use this as a way to consolidate its power. I mean, in retrospect, when we see what happened in Turkey, unfortunately, there was some genuine efforts from some fronts to solve the Kurdish issue. But from what I see, this is some of my conclusions about what's happening in this front, that AKP used HDP and PKK to consolidate its power. This whole issue of the Kurdish opening, or let's say the desecuritization, was a mean for to co-opt the Kurdish movement for Erdogan to consolidate his what we see his authoritarian power. When they saw this is not happening, we saw HDP, pushing back. They obviously just dumped HDP and the negotiations with PKK, and they turned to MHP, the nationalist, the far-right nationalist Turkish movement, which is obviously, this is one of the byproducts of the the current hardline policies. But regardless of all this, what I'm saying is the Kurdish issue, whether you see it through PKK or otherwise, it's a real issue in Turkey. It's an issue, a political issue of repression, a military issue we are seeing through these operations, and an economic issue. There's a lot of, let's say, economic backwardness in the Kurdish areas. The only way this issue can be solved is a multifaceted effort to solve all these issues. And these issues will start, in my opinion, with a structural reshuffling of what it means to be a Turkish citizen. I mean, the issue is you have an ethnic group, which are the majority Turks. They are imposing their identity on Kurds. This has to change. And there has been some admission by the Turkish side. For example, Turgut Özal, which was a Turkish prime minister and then president, he admitted that it would have been much better if Turkey was called, let's say, Anatolia. It would be much easier for Kurds to say, I'm an Anatolian Kurd. But it's really weird, for example, to say I'm a Turkish Kurd. Like, what the hell does that even mean? It's really, you have to start with this. I mean, as I said, there are all these problems, but you have to start with this issue. There has been a lot of efforts by academics, by intellectuals to find a solution. But obviously, it's very difficult because the majority Turks seeing this as an existential issue for them. So there has to be some sort of a way to start from these questions, because these questions, without solving these questions, these other issues that we have, the PKK, the political repression, the economic backwardness, they're not going to go away. That was my final remarks on this issue.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It's kind of corny, but it comes down to that thing, like, you know, you can kill people, but you can't kill the idea. You know,
Exactly, because these issues has been there since the establishment of the Turkish issue. And what happened then? We know what happened. It's that, you know, the imposition of the dominant group, the majority Turk, on the other minorities, which is really the only way is some sort of arrangement where, I mean, right now, no Kurd, by the way, no Kurd wants a separate entity or a separate, let's say, state. This is not what Kurds want. In a way, in my opinion, it can even be more beneficial for Kurds to stay within Turkey if there are these other things solved, if there are these, let's say, structural issues solved, if there is an inclusive, let's say, constitution where it admits there are Kurds, they have the right, they can speak Kurdish, there would be no, let's say, issue. The thing is, throughout all these years, what they have done is they have made Kurd means the lower class, by the way. In Turkey, until recently, Kurd mean lower class. This is what it means. This has to change. I mean, in Turkey, until recently, you had three classes: the white Turks, the seculars, and then the other Turks, conservative, and then Kurds are the lowest class. Basically, this has been the policy of the Turkish state. This has to change. Otherwise, there's no way millions of Kurds would accept it. I mean, obviously, there has been assimilation of some Kurds, but millions of Kurds we have seen up to 10 million Kurds would never accept this. And this number, by the way, would increase in the years to come as more Kurds, you know, will find out their roots and they embrace it. So this issue cannot be fixed without having an arrangement with when Kurds are no longer ashamed and no longer are seen as the lower class, but they are seen as just like Turks. So this has these issues has to be tackled. Otherwise, honestly, this PKK issue is only part of the bigger issue. It's not the whole issue. They are trying to minimize it to the issue of PKK and terrorism, but no, I mean, data, the reality, the data, all the maps we have seen, all the academic work. I mean, even if you go, despite all this repression, even if you look at Turkish media, you can clearly see, you know, this issue is much bigger than just being PKK. It's a big issue, and they're all interconnected. And I think unless we see a Turkish leader or a Turkish party and the Turkish public who's ready to admit these issues, this is going to continue. But in my opinion, at some point, sooner or later, they will realize it, because this issue will continue. And by the way, this issue is not only the issue of Kurds, it's the issue of Turks as well. It's because of this we are seeing the clampdown on democratic norms. This issue has been there since then. For example, the establishment of the Turkish state, the Kurds has been used by the ruling party to suppress everybody. Really, no, it's not only Kurds. Now they're using this weapon against Kurds, but we are seeing this suppression against other groups as well. So solving this issue benefits all Turkey, by the way, not only Kurds, because economically it will benefit the whole country. It will basically, politically, there would be much more democratization. I think even when it comes to very basic issues of citizenship, individual rights will substantially increase if this issue is solved. So I think it's in the benefit of Turkish public. Unfortunately, they don't realize it, because many of them, we see the Turkish mainstream media, we see even the education system, we see all their political parties have been, you know, pushing back on this idea. They have been saying that, you know, all this blame is on Kurds, but it's the other way around, really. If they want a prosperous Turkish state, the only way is through what I mentioned, a structural reshuffling of what it means to be a Turkish citizen. It's basically, you have to go back to this. Otherwise, this issue is not going to be solved, unfortunately.
Thanks very much, Abdullah. Where can people find your work and follow on with your reporting on this conflict?
Thank you. So I'm quite active on Twitter. you can follow me on Twitter at Abdulla Hawez. On Twitter, it's ABDULLAHAWEZ. I do tweet on this specific issue of the PKK, the Kurdish issue overall in the Middle East. So you can find everything that I publish, even other things that I published elsewhere. You can see it on my Twitter.
All right, mate. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
That was the excellent Abdulla Hawez talking to us about the current conflict in Iraqi Kurdistan, or the KRG, Kurdish Regional Government, whatever you want to call it, Bashur, whichever. Again, basically, KDP, one of the ruling parties, has colluded with the Turkish military and state, and is attacking Kurdish militants, the PKK. Very messy situation, very sad for a lot of Kurds to see. But yeah, I think Abdullah did a great way of explaining the deeper implications and reasons behind all of this. Make sure you check out his work. I've been following Abdullah for years. I think he's a very level-headed and fair commentator when it comes to all of these conflicts regarding Kurdistan. If you like what we're doing here at Popular Front, please do consider supporting us on the Patreon, because we do not accept corporate funding. We don't have any bosses or shareholders or anything like that. So the way we keep going, the way we stay independent and honest, is via subscriptions to our Patreon, patreon.com/popularfront, or you can donate or send us something, whatever you want, at popularfront.co/support. Thank you to our sponsors on this episode. Oracle Coffee Shop in Portland, Oregon, USA. They're an independent coffee business selling only fair trade products. See them at 3875 Southwest Bond Avenue, 97239. Also, Grindcore House, a pair of independent coffee shops in Philadelphia, USA. One in South, one in West. Find them on socials at Grindcore House. And also Propagandopolis, an outlet selling and writing about historical conflict propaganda from around the world. Good friends of ours. Buy prints at propagandopolis.com. Use a promo code POPULARFRONT10 for 10% off. Follow us on social media. The Instagram is at popular.front. Twitter is at popularfront_. And if you want to follow me on any platform, it's at Jake_Hanrahan, HANRAHAN, spelled exactly as you say it. Follow us on, or subscribe to us rather, on YouTube, youtube.com/popularfront. Look us up. We've got all sorts going on there. Right now there is a new preview on the YouTube for some of the filming we did with the territorial defense in Ukraine as they prepared for the war. So this was just before the invasion. It's quite eerie looking back at it now, hearing what they've got to say. That is a preview for more content that is on the Patreon. So we've got some Patreon only video stuff this month. I think that's the way forward. A lot of people like Popular Front, engage in Popular Front. So if we want to stay growing, kind of in tune with the momentum that we have, I think we need to, put more stuff only on the Patreon. Hopefully people will subscribe for it. But like I said, it's like $5 a month. You can see a lot more extra there. All bonus content, everything. Patreon.com/popularfront. Music in this episode, the intro was by Home, and as always the outro was by Sam Black. Listen to his music at samblackpf.com. Thank you to the high tier Patreons. They are Cameron Collins, Nutty, Alex Harvey, Q Loves Cake Farts, Nicholas Blomberg, Matthew Diffley, Noah Schmidt, Lisa, Jane Millichip, Claire, Liana, Sean, Christianovich, NTHG, Ethan Zwick, Champagne Anarchist, Josh M, Elise Middlefart, David McManus, Joaquim Williamson Holt, Yudoye Travis, Ikta K, Tom Petrie, James Leons, Lisa Milgram, Bradley Davies, No Dogs, No Hamsters, Brendan Crave. How can you say no dogs, no hamsters? They're like two of the best animals. Brendan Crave, B, Drift, Pete Hesher, RX, Travis Lieberman, Cherry, Ben Marshall, Dallas Dunn, Shikhar Gupta, LD50 Seattle, K Glitter Vulcan, Meredith Waters, Bethany Swarveland, Adam H, Ryan Barbadillo, Derivative Fool, Larson 8669, Karante, Bjorn Kirsten, Diamondstein, Michael O'Connor, TFD, Nicholas Butter, JD, Jav, Ian Froese, James Cully, Anil Dingus, Tynan Daly, Ethan, Shanklin the Painter, Fitz Madrid, Ed Coulthard, Mike Barone, Ben, Scott Upton, Liam Williams, Chris Cusimano, Degenerate Zero Alpha, Giorgio Arani, DR, Trey Nance, Amy R, Rubicon, Frank Austin, Amelia Me, Nawaiz, Nate Van Dor, Christina Ravetti, Freya Northman, Noah, Andrew Hurley, Vida Provost, Brian McLaughlin, Tom Lochrin, Young Wasabi, Tony Bin, Adam Bergsnyder, JL, Stephen Davila, Anthony Kabarik, Dan Dunham, Fletcher, Chad Walker, Diana Gorvanek, Lawrence Abrahams, Peter McCormick, Christopher Martin, Ryan Sandercock, and Moritz Zumbul. There are so many now of the top tier Patreons. I remember when there was like 4. Thank you all so much. Really do appreciate it. Honestly, just carrying this on, keeping it moving. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Like I said, you want to support us, you want to see us keep growing, go to patreon.com/popularfront.